we are now expanding, and there is a pain in that expansion. There is a pain in us shedding old skin and having to get rid of the things that are no longer aligned with this new sense of inner strength that we are carrying with us. Mars, the planet of action, passion, conflict, individuality, courage, is finally going direct since being retrograde from December 6th of 2024, giving us the go-ahead to move towards something new, to start taking action towards something new that we've been thinking about for months now. While Mars has been in Cancer, this watery, emotionally sign of Cancer, we've had to navigate these emotional depths. There's a lot of positives that have come from this, and it hasn't been easy for most of us. But now it's time to get rewarded for all of that hard inner work that we've done around emotional boundaries, around navigating how to stand up for ourselves and to figure out what emotions are constructive and which ones are destructive in our lives. Now that Mars is going forward, we get a chance to actually put that out into the world. This is a moment that so many people have been waiting for, because Mars only goes retrograde about every 2 years. And so every time it does, it stays there for a little bit longer. And Mars has been in Cancer on and off since September of 2024. Mars doesn't love being in Cancer. I've talked about this a lot throughout the last few months about how it's in its fall, but let's talk a little bit about the transits. We're going to do a little bit of the Sabian symbol, and then we're going to do the all signs after and see how we can apply this to your sun, moon, rising signs as well. So as I said, Mars has been retrograde since December 6th, and it actually started going retrograde in the sign of Leo. Now, Mars won't re-enter Leo until the 18th of April, so we're going to talk a little bit more about that as it comes. But until then, it's going to be still in the sign of Cancer. And in fact, it's been at the 17 degrees where it will station direct since February 11th. And it's going to stay there until March 9th. This is really crazy, you guys. That's almost an entire Mars cycle where it's going to be staying at 1 degree. So if you have anything around 17 degrees of Cancer, and other cardinal signs as well, so Libra, Capricorn, and Aries, I would say give or take 2 degrees on either side, but specifically if anything at 17 degrees, man, Mars is changing things up for you. And these changes that we talk about, because so many different planets talk about change, right? What the type of change that Mars brings into our lives are the kind that we initiate. It's our will, it's our courage, it's our actions that change into something. So when Mars goes retrograde, we're re-evaluating and reviewing and reassessing the actions we want to take. And now that it's going direct, it's going to give us the go-ahead to actually start moving on some of these things. It is going to be in its post-retrograde shadow for quite a while, because it's going to be covering the same degrees that it went retrograde. But I wouldn't pay too much attention to that. Yes, you may see certain themes come up that came up during the pre-retrograde shadow or during the retrograde. But regardless, it's time for you to start moving forward in something, depending on where this is in your chart. But it's also a little bit more convoluted than that, because Mars was also retrograde in Leo. So for a lot of us, it's going to be in the Cancer and Leo parts of our chart where we're taking a new sense of action, where we're wanting to be courageous, and we want to assert our individuality into the world, our independence into the world. One of the most important aspects of Mars going through Cancer too is the fact that Jupiter is going into Cancer later this year in June. Jupiter brings expansion into the same part of our lives where Mars can bring this cutting or this feeling of, like I talked about, growth with pain. So it's almost like if we can go through this aspect of having a harder time or cutting things and reevaluating things and having to go through this conflict and acting towards our greatest potential, but knowing that that potential means that some things cannot come with us. Jupiter comes in later this year and it gives us the expansion, the good fortune, the good luck, the optimism in the same part of our chart that we struggled through for several months, for most of us, not all of us, right? But that Mars not just being in Cancer, but being retrograde as well. This is the same area that Jupiter will be going through. And I think that's a really important thing to add and keep in mind. And I plan on talking about it again so that it gives us a sense of optimism and a hope as we're going through this, that us standing up for ourselves, us setting these boundaries in these different parts of our lives that Cancer is in our charts, is going to be rewarded. So do the hard work now that Mars wants you to do. Take action that you need to take, and Jupiter will reward you. Mars has been out of bounds since January 1st and is going to continue to be out of bounds until April 7th. When Mars is out of bounds, it means that it's not within the realm of the sun. And the sun is the king, and Mars is the warrior. So what you can imagine is a warrior gone rogue. It opens up the intensity and it opens up the spontaneity of Mars, giving it more independence than it usually has. Meaning it's no longer being ordered by the sun, that it needs to stay within certain guidelines. Mars, when it's out of bounds, can be very unpredictable, can kind of take all those Martian themes of action, war, conflict, strife, assertion, individuality, independence, and really exaggerate them. And so for some of us, this is exactly what we need. And when we talk about the human design, I'll talk a little bit more about it, because we do want to be careful about how we act when Mars is out of bounds. Here are some of the transits from February 23rd when it actually goes direct, okay? When a planet stations direct, it is very, very powerful. And it's going to be at exactly 7 degrees. So we're going to read the Sabian symbol for 17 degrees and discuss that just for a little bit. But that day is important for us to look at to kind of understand, what is this theme that we're entering with Mars direct now? So the first thing that I noticed is that it's going to make an opposition to the moon in Capricorn. Now, the moon is in its detriment in Capricorn. It doesn't love being there. And Mars, of course, is in its fall in Cancer. There's also going to be a quincunx from the moon to Jupiter on the same day. What I would say about this day is to be really wary of how you react emotionally to things, because you may be overly exaggerated on how you act with that Jupiter quincunx as well. But even just the moon opposition Mars gives us a lot of desire to fight. It's like a desire for drama almost. It's kind of like a nice way to reinvigorate that Martian energy that's felt kind of dampened recently with it being retrograde, but we want to make sure that we don't overshoot the shot, because the emotions might be really big, and whenever there's an opposition, it generally comes out in our relationships with other people. So just being wary of that. It does have a trine to Mercury and Saturn in Pisces. So this is great because in some ways we can communicate what we are desiring to do and how we are desiring to move, and Saturn is going to give us the stability that we need in order to work on these foundations that we've built. One of the things I talked a lot about with Mars being in Cancer retrograde has been about building foundations, emotional foundations of safety and stability, so then we can spring off from this with a sense of inner strength. This is the tarot card I pulled, which is absolutely perfect for Mars going direct after being retrograde. But yeah, so we can move from this place of inner stability, inner security. We can then start to navigate new worlds. We can navigate new directions, new ways of being courageous and taking action in the world from what we've learned. And Mars is going to square Chiron in Aries, which is also going to be squaring the moon. So it's kind of like a T-square between the moon, Mars, and Chiron. Chiron is the wounded healer, and with Mars squaring this, because it's been sitting at 17 degrees for so long, it's been squaring this for quite a while, saying that a lot of the things that we're doing, a lot of the courage that we're getting to take action towards something may be very healing for us, but it may feel very difficult because it's bringing up very deep wounds in us. But it's almost as if whenever we have aspects to Chiron, that those wounds that are being brought up are here to heal us, yes, and then are able to become our superpowers, right? Because the mythology of Chiron is that where he was hurt and abandoned was how he helped others. And so, whatever is coming up around how you're moving in life, what kind of actions you're taking that maybe you didn't have the courage to take before, it can be very, very healing, and therefore could feel very, very uncomfortable, because healing is not a comfortable process, right? Like Adyashanti says, awakening is a destructive process. It is not a fun process. So for us, awakening into realizing our potential by taking action in these new ways that we normally wouldn't have, or we felt too small or too scared through moving in that way, we are now expanding, and there is a pain in that expansion. There is a pain in us shedding old skin and having to get rid of the things that are no longer aligned with this new sense of inner strength that we are carrying with us forward. And this is a necessary part of the process that actually leads really well into the Sabian symbol. So the Sabian symbol is the germ grows into knowledge and life. The theme here is growth and building upon potential. Although the seeker has meditated upon self-surrender into unity, still they have an equal and opposite will to proclaim the uniqueness of self and project individuality forward. This is from James Burgess, and it's kind of what I was just saying, right? Like that we talk so much about surrender and oneness, and this is all very important. Neptune's still conjunct the North Node, so these are very important themes. But at some point, part of the reason, it's this really interesting thing, because we hear about like dissolving the ego, which Mars doesn't want to dissolve the ego, right? Neither does the sun. The Mars and sun don't like dissolving their egos, okay? They love the ego, especially the sun. So, but we demonize the ego, right? We say, oh, it must be dissolved, it needs to surrender. But actually, if we don't have a well-defined ego before it goes to get dissolved, this is where we get sociopaths, psychopaths. We need to first build a healthy ego before we even start the process of surrendering. And therefore, it's this kind of back and forth, right? The ego is not a bad thing, it's there to protect us. But sometimes in doing so, it creates limitations. It creates judgment and separation from others. And so it's like dipping into the universal consciousness and into unity, but then recognizing that when we do that and when we surrender and we kind of, this ego goes to transform and to dissolve, it can come back out and project itself in a more holistic and individuated way. And it can proclaim that uniqueness of self forward now. Right. So it's this constant like going in to get dissolved, then coming back out. You know, for most of us, it's not like this awakening process happens and then all of a sudden we're just like, our life is just perfect now. One characteristic of a being is the urge and urgency to become. We are all moved by inner compulsion towards situations and encounters through which we both expand, refine this essential identity. Ancient alchemists who spoke of the philosopher's stone were working with this very concept. How can we turn lead into gold? In other words, how can we reclaim our spiritual glory when we are imprisoned in clay? And perhaps the best answer is slowly, inevitably, and repeatedly through eternity. When I was reading this, it made me think about how when Mars is in Cancer, we've talked about this, doesn't like being in Cancer, right? It's like, oh, why do I have to go through this emotional process and growth and like, but in this time period, going through those emotional processes is actually the only way that we can turn lead into gold. It's the only way that we can make something beautiful, because we've learned that we can't repress, we can't suppress, we can't avoid. And we also don't want to just, when Mars is retrograde, it kind of limits us from taking direct action right away. We have to sit with whatever feeling we're having and understand it from a different perspective. One of the things, and this is kind of very relevant right now because it pertains to gate 35, which Jupiter is currently in gate 35 in human design right now, so I'm going to speak on it a little bit. One of the things that happened with me during this Mars in Cancer retrograde specifically is that ever since I was young, I've had kind of an issue with food. Like snacking, chocolate, sugar, and I could just eat so much of it all the time when I was young. And it was a way, now I recognize, a way of me dealing with these like really intense emotions that I had that I didn't feel like anyone in my family or my friends could be there for. And so I felt like it was all on me and I couldn't handle it. And so the gate 35, the shadow in the gene keys is hunger, and the gift is adventure. And so Richard Rudd talks a lot about how when people are in the shadow frequency, they are addicted to food, they are addicted to substances, they are addicted to pleasure and to things in an unhealthy way, right? Because pleasure is amazing. Indulging in food is amazing, but when we have it expanded, like when Jupiter's there and we choose constant short-term pleasure over long-term gain, and we don't want to have that short-term pain for the long-term pleasure, and we're mixing up dopamine versus serotonin, because dopamine is what we're addicted to, whereas serotonin is actually what brings contentment, then we are in the shadow and there's this insatiable hunger for everything, for life, for intensity, for food, for something to fill that deep void. And ultimately that deep void leads back to wanting to be one with divinity, yes. But in this specific gene key, it's this feeling of making life an adventure. That's a gene key that I've worked with a lot because I recognized how much of my life when I was younger was like grasping at this intensity and this hunger that I wanted to fill and I could never fill it. During this transit, one of the things I worked with was food, and how so often I would go to grab a snack. And I said, what if I just asked myself instead, like, what am I actually feeling right now? Am I actually hungry? Or is my soul hungry for something? And oftentimes, I would say 80% of the time, I'm still currently experimenting with this. It's not easy. It is that my soul is hungry for something. It's hungry for connection, for knowledge. Sometimes, usually, I'm tired. I'm just tired and I just need to rest, or I want to read, or I want to go outside. I want something else, but I don't feel like it's like my neural pathways since childhood have been like grab food. So for you, it might be grab your phone, which also is one of mine too, but, or grab a beer, or grab some other substance, in this way of like trying to actually, and not really acknowledging what's happening underneath. These are the things that Mars and Cancer can help us turn that lead into gold, into that philosopher's stone, into understanding that all things can be spiritual and beautiful, all things, if we work with them on a deep enough level. Like I said, we currently have Jupiter in gate 35 of hunger slash adventure. So collectively, I feel like this is something that a lot of us could be going through in different ways, wanting to satisfy a deeper hunger and not just this like, animalistic urge to go after something, which is so much like the strength card, right? We talk about how in the strength card, which is what I pulled for this Mars direct, she is taming the lion, and therefore she is taming her inner instincts, because Mars in Cancer is extraordinarily instinctual, emotionally instinctive, acts out of fear and acts out of emotions. Mars is going to be going direct, and it currently is in gate 53, line 3. This is the gate of beginnings. In the gene keys, this is the shadow of immaturity and the gift of expansion. Now, we talked about expansion a lot here when, yeah, we are all moved by an inner compulsion towards situations and encounters through which we both expand and refine this essential identity. So it's very much, and the theme of it was growth. So it's very interesting that these two kind of are similar. With the gate 53 line 3, there is an opportunity for us to end cycles of disharmony and imbalance. So on the face of it, that sounds really cool. That sounds really great, right? When he talks about the immaturity, the shadow, he says there's two natures of this shadow, Richard Rudd. He says that they can be solemn or fickle. So for solemn, these are the people who are stuck in an imbalance and disharmony and are in these cycles, and they just kind of give up. They're like, well, this is my life. I can't do anything about it. I'm just going to do the best I can. I hate my job. I hate my relationship. Or, it's like good enough. I don't know, whatever. I don't feel like this is good. I don't feel like, but this is where I'm at, and I'm just going to make the best of it. And then fickle is when someone is more reactive with the shadow, and therefore what they do more often is they'll jump from cycle to cycle. So this is the gate of beginnings, right? So they'll just have new beginnings. Okay, I'm gonna start a new job, and this will fix that cycle. If I end this relationship and start this new relationship, it'll end the cycle. But there's nothing actually changing, right? And so we have to be careful, because the whole point of this, from the shadow to the gift of expansion, is that there is a transcendence of the cycle. It's not merely ending one cycle. And I talk about this a lot in general, because we have, as humans, a tendency to do this, to think like, oh, if I move to this new city, oh, if I move to this, but wherever you go, there you are, right? But we have to like go through this. And with the line 3 activated, which is a very experiential line, I think most of us may be tempted to go the more fickle route right now, meaning that we may be tempted to end a cycle and to start a new cycle without fully finishing out the old one and really taking in the experience that it was, and then moving into a new cycle. Because like I said, when Mars goes direct after being retrograde for so long, and people are like, yeah, like, I'm so excited, let's take action. And yes, absolutely. We're like there, it's awesome. And also, where is that desire for action coming from? Is it coming from frustration? Is it coming from angst? Is it coming from feeling fickle and just like, I need a change, I need something to change? If it is, I just say, my advice would be to look into that further. Like, what am I expanding towards by doing this? In what ways am I growing by ending this cycle? In what ways am I growing by beginning this cycle? What have I learned? Because Cancer is the past, and Mars is still in Cancer until April 18th. Like, we're not just done with Mars in Cancer yet. Mars in Cancer wants to make sense of the past. It rules the past. It rules memories and nostalgia. So even if we move forward, we want to make sure we reflect on the past before we make this decision to move forward, so that we're not just repeating those same cycles. So I think that's all I've got for Mars direct. When it gets closer to Mars moving into Leo, we'll talk about it then, because that's going to be a little bit different. But for right now, this is good. Yeah. And so we're just going to go into the all signs. You can listen for your sun, moon, rising. You can listen for your stelliums and see what resonates. All right, I'll see you guys there. So for my Aries, sun, moon, and rising, Mars is going direct in your 4th house, your 4th house of home, family, inner emotional foundations, your sense of inner stability and security. This is an emotional house. And it has to do, like I said, with your family, but also your inner home, your inner sanctuary. Now, for Aries people, arguably this Mars retrograde has been one of the most difficult, because Mars is the ruler of your sign, and it's in its fall. And Mars has been in Cancer for the better part of the last 5 months. And it's going to be there for like 6-7 months, because it moved into Cancer September of 2024, and it's not leaving until April 18th. So it's not been easy. And then add in the retrograde on top of that. I mean, I feel like unless you're a Aries that has a lot of water in their chart, being pulled back into the watery depths of Cancer specifically, because Cancer is like raw emotion. It's not where you guys love to go. It's not your preferred method of being, right? Because you guys are cardinal fire. You want to move forward. You want to take action. You want to start new things. And so not only has that been thwarted through the retrograde, but it's been thwarted through the fact that Mars is in its fall. So even now when Mars goes direct, like, yes, you can start moving forward with things that you've been working on or planning regarding your fourth house matters specifically. But the watery depths are still there. Mars is still going through Cancer. It's not quite time yet to jump into the fires of Leo. Like, that's coming, and we'll talk about it. Right now, it's still about building inner foundations, but now you can actually start moving towards something. So is there something, a way that you've wanted to be courageous within your emotional world, within your home, with your family, that you are now embarking upon? I shared in the first part of this video kind of one of my experiences with food and exploring and navigating my emotional connection to food. So it's things like this, because when Mars moves forward, it gives us emotional courage in Cancer to do the things that we didn't feel like we could do before, and to take action from a place of assertiveness. And that may not be new for you, but this time your emotional body is on board with this. I've been saying a lot of Aries, Sun, Moon, Rising are moving around this time, like really since last September. Maybe it's something that you've been wanting to do and now it's actually coming to fruition. Or maybe there's a family situation or situation in the home that is not healthy, and you've been mustering up the courage to move a different way, to act upon it in a way that is more reliant on your sense of boundaries. I think you guys are going to be feeling this quite strongly, and the go ahead is clear. Where do you want to take this? Where do you want to move now that you've cultivated this sense of emotional inner courage? Where do you want to expand from there? Where do you want to grow from there? You've planted this seed of something while you've been planning all of these things that you want to do, and now it's time to go. It's time to move forward. So make sure you guys listen to the first part of the video. I obviously go much more in depth there, and let me know what resonates for you guys, what's going on in your lives. How's this Mars in Cancer retrograde been for you guys? Do you feel like it's brought some more emotional depth to you guys? Has it been difficult? Has it been easy? What have you learned from it? It's probably been difficult and easy, because like I said in the beginning of the video, expansion is an uncomfortable process. It's not like Jupiter makes us feel like all expansion is just rainbows and butterflies, but expansion can be moving into unknown territory, and that can be quite scary, especially for you guys. You guys have such a conglomerate in your 12th house right now, and the 12th house is the unknown, and so you're building up this emotional courage to move into the unknown in ways, and kind of surrendering. This is for fire signs, this is like a soul message that's happening, because we have Pisces in our watery houses, this conglomerate of Pisces in our watery houses. And so it's really pushing us to explore, especially for you guys with North Node there, the unknown, and walking this new path, taking this new path forward without really knowing where exactly it's going to go. All right, I'll see you guys later. For my Taurus, Sun, Moon, and Rising, you guys have Mars going direct in your third house of Cancer. Well, what is the third house? The third house is skills, learning. It's your immediate environment, the people that are surrounding you on a day-to-day, the routine trips that you take to go to work, to go to grocery store, your neighbors, siblings, cousins, people that are around you. It's communication and thoughts, short-term travel. So for some of you guys, you may be increasing your amount of short-term travel. Maybe you have a new job and you have to travel more, or you're picking up a new hobby and you have to travel more for it around town. It's generally like around town. It's not generally going out of state or out of the country. because it's more routine. So maybe you're doing that in order to learn something new. This could be something that you guys have been thinking about since maybe even September of last year, or you signed up for September of last year. Maybe you're learning about communicating in a different way. And, with Mars being retrograde in your third house, communication may have felt difficult, emotional, but difficult to convey. And I think for everybody, yes, it's true. But also for you guys specifically, because it's in your third house of communication, there could have been a lot of miscommunications the last several months while Mars has been retrograde. Mars can bring aggression to the environment, aggression to the thoughts, aggression to the words. So it could be that now you've got some clarity on some of those things that were kind of confusing or you were unsure about, and you were learning to have certain boundaries when it comes to communication, and maybe planning some sort of new venture that you want to go on, whether that's learning or teaching. Now you've cultivated this inner courage to go after what you want and to make the changes that are necessary in your immediate environment in order to best support the ways that you're growing mentally. And, that can be through learning. But maybe when I think of the third house, it's so all encompassing, you guys, because if you think about your immediate surroundings, it could have to do with, if you have pets, it could have to do with pets. If you live with roommates, if you live with a partner, if you have, you live in a certain neighborhood, it's like, all of those things could be changing, and they're changing because of you. That's the thing with Mars, is you're deciding, you're choosing to do something new within the third house realms. In my immediate surroundings, my routine trips, learning. This can also be teaching a little bit, but mostly the third house I think of as learning and gaining new skills. You guys have your huge Pisces stellium, which we'll talk a lot about with the new moon in Pisces, happening in your 11th house. So new communities are here for you, new benefactors. So maybe you're changing your immediate surroundings so that you can find better social networks, more aligned social networks, new communities that are maybe spiritual, but also destined for you, that have been seeking you just as much as you've been seeking them. So Taurus, make sure you guys listen to the first part of the video. I went more into depth about everything. Let me know how this resonates. Let me know are you guys learning new skills? What's going on? Is there more activity in your day-to-day? Is there more traveling? Is there more learning? Is there more communicating? What is going on in your guys' lives? And yeah, I'll see you guys next time. For my Gemini, Sun, Moon, and Rising, Mars is going direct in Cancer in your second house. What is your second house? It is your finances, your income, your self-worth, your values, material resources. It's about how you spend money, how you get money. This is also a place, especially when Mars is here, of wanting independence financially. So a lot of times we can see small businesses in the second house. So over the last several months since December 6th, I talk more about the dates in the beginning of this video, you guys have been possibly planning or desiring more autonomy in the way that you make money, more autonomy in the way that you spend money. So for a lot of us, this could be like a side hustle, having some extra money, or for some of you guys, it could be, I say some of us because, I'm a Gemini sun, but it could also be like that you're deciding to just fully move into a new job because your job doesn't give you the autonomy that you desire. But ultimately, Mars going direct here is giving you the go ahead to start actually taking some actions here. Also, the second house in Vedic astrology is what we put in our mouth. So diet could be big here too. Like maybe you're thinking about what you're eating more. Actually, now that I just thought of it, I shared a story in the first part of the video about eating, and that's kind of been a thing for me during this retrograde and my connection and my relationship with food. So that could also be a thing for some of you guys possibly. You've been planning maybe different ways to make money, different ways to do things, and now it's like Mars going direct is saying, yes, we can do this. And when Mars goes into Leo, we'll talk about that more as it gets closer in April. But once it does, then you can start thinking about the skills that you're going to need in order to accomplish these goals that you're setting right now. Mars being in the second house also, the second house is a lot about worth and value and our self-esteem. So maybe there's been some work, because when we talk about money, money is one way of valuing things, right? So our own sense of value and money can be very interrelated, and oftentimes one of the most limiting things in how much we can make money is how much we do or don't value ourselves. So maybe that's something that you guys have been working on, is increasing your self-worth by extending more boundaries, because Mars is about boundaries, and Mars in Cancer sets up emotional boundaries. And maybe you're recognizing that you're giving too much in certain spaces, and that does not allow you to have the energy or the resources that you want, or the autonomy or the freedom that you want when it comes to making money. And the second house is about your money. It's not about shared resources, it's about your money. So you're really thinking about this like sense of independence. And of course, you guys have this massive conglomerate of Pisces in your 10th house. And that's really wanting you to change up your career for most of you guys, you know, change something about your public status, something regarding work and money. I mean, your earth houses are kind of lit up right now, right? So it's about changing financially, gaining authority. And I think the 10th house is where we gain authority, but the second house is where we have, like I said, our sense of self-esteem. So we need to be quite aggressive about showing people that we know our worth, and then they can respect it, right? Let me know how this resonates for you guys, Gemini. What has been going on with Mars being retrograde in your second house, and Cancer bringing up all sorts of emotions around money and financial independence and autonomy and self-worth and spending money, and maybe you're budgeting more now because you realize you need to in order to reach that goal of having a different career or a different sort of public status. Yeah, what's been going on with you guys? I'd love to hear more about it, and we'll talk about Mars and Leo once it gets closer. I'll see you guys next time. Cancer, Sun, Moon, and Rising. Man, I think I've said this before, but I really feel like you guys needed this. I feel like you guys really needed this Mars transit to be so long in your sign. It's been there since September, and yes, it's gone into Leo and then now back, but I feel like you guys needed this. And I think that you needed the push of Mars, and I think you needed to feel Mars close to you internally, because when it goes retrograde, that's ultimately what it does, is it feels closer. That's why we can feel more frustrated, because we feel Martian things, but we can't really move forward with them because Mars is retrograde. And so then we feel frustrated and limited, and we see obstacles. But we also get to feel what it is to have Mars and Martian action, and going for it and being direct and assertive and saying what we want. And yes, of course, you know, this may have been very difficult for you, but like I talked about in the beginning of this video, growth is not always a comfortable process. You know, it's like we have to shed things in order to expand. And so pushing through that phase can be really hard for Cancerians who love security, who love feeling comfort. So having Mars in your sign has been pushing you really far outside of your comfort zone and saying that this is not good enough. And so for you guys, having it in Cancer is about self-assertion. It's putting up boundaries once and for all, and not letting people speak to you in any way that you don't want to be spoken to. You don't want to be treated like. It's something that I just think is bringing so much inner strength to you guys, because you guys tend to be quite emotional, and in that emotionality, there is oftentimes too much letting other people get away with stuff. And a lot of times it's just because you don't want to hurt feelings. You don't want to be too aggressive. So you just skirt around issues. And ultimately it just doesn't ever get fixed, right? Like the core of the issue doesn't get fixed. And so this is no longer what you want. And with Mars direct, you're able to finally start moving towards asserting yourself in a really great new way. And you probably already did some of that while Mars was retrograde. Okay guys, also before I forget, I talked about this in the beginning of the video, but if you have, I took it off. If you have anything between at 17 degrees of Cancer specifically, man, Mars has been sitting here since February 11th. It'll be here till March 9th. So it is just sitting at the 17th degree, like for a month. That's insane. But regardless, any Cancer placement, is feeling this. And, you know, you may have been working towards setting better boundaries and setting a new direction for yourself, right? Because this is in your first house. So this is new beginnings, new identities. This is new outlooks on life, new perspective, new attitude. I mean, the first house sets up your whole chart. So the fact that, you know, Mars is here, it's giving you courage to move forward on this brand new path. And I'm so excited to see where this leads you guys. And I want to know what your experience was like with Mars retrograde. I talked more about the signs and the dates in the first part, but it's been retrograde since December 6th. So now it's coming out on the 23rd. This is amazing. Tell me what your experience was. And yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Okay, so for my Leo sun, moon, and rising, you guys have Mars going direct in your 12th house. Man. Leos, and really all fire signs right now are going through major things in different ways because of the watery placements that are in the air and in the houses as well for you guys. So Mars being in the 12th on and off since September of last year has been very interesting. It is really bringing up your deep inner motivations in life, your subconscious motivations, right? The things that we are not so sure about, right? Like the 12th house is a house of spirituality, solitude, retreat, long distance travel. You may have wanted to retreat a lot. I just was thinking right now, as I said that, you know, I'm Leo rising, I've gone on 2 silent meditation retreats since Mars has gone into Cancer. And I'm planning my 3rd one next month. Or in April, I'm sorry. So right before Mars goes into Leo, into our first house. So I know that's how I've been feeling it. Maybe your dreams have been intense. My dreams have been crazy. I sometimes, like, I'll wake up and I'll remember like 5 or 6 of my dreams. Having some prophetic dreams as well. It's been really intense. But Mars being back here is putting our action, courage, desire, passion into this watery, unknown, subconscious, self-undoing place of the 12th house where we can't see. So actually, I think this is amazing because it's with this and the conglomerate of Pisces planets, which we will talk about when we talk about the new moon in Pisces, in your 8th house of transformation. Between these 2 things going on right now, specifically, like you guys are in the depths of massive change, psychological change, subconscious change. And I think that this is really necessary for you guys to have had this time with Mars, not just in your 12th house, but also retrograde, to really get clear about your subconscious beliefs, your self-undoing, your self-limiting beliefs, and through those to find your inner motivations for so many things. And this could be health issues. This could be everything because the 12th house is your subconscious, which governs all of your lives or all of your life. But I also always think about how the opposite is the 6th house of illness. So a lot of times it can have to do with work, with illness. Like you guys are really trying to figure out like, what is it exactly? Why is it exactly that I'm acting the way I'm acting, or I'm bringing these things into my life? I also feel like the 12th house is this house of the unknown. It's like walking into a black hole and not knowing what lies on the other side. And the 8th house is like the process of the transformation that happens there. So now that Mars is direct, it's like you've been cultivating this inner courage to dive into the unknown, to go where you maybe have been scared to go before because you are a fixed sign. You don't like change. You don't like the unknown. You want certainty, right? Especially in certain aspects of your life, but really like in all aspects, most aspects of your life, the foundational aspects, right? Your identity, your home life, your relationships, and your career, right? The 1st, 4th, 7th, and 10th. You don't like spontaneity there. You don't like massive change. You like things to stay the same, even if you're unhappy. Because it's just, you can tolerate a lot before you're like, okay, something has to change. But I think you're now starting to see that there are things in your spirituality, in your subconscious, and you really need some alone time for this and time to go inward, journal, reflect, to see like what exactly, has been holding me back to going to where I want to actually go. Because when Mars goes into your first house, which we'll talk about later as it gets closer, because that's not until April 18th. But when that does happen, you're ready to embark on a whole new journey. The first house is a brand new journey, brand new identity. So right now it's about making sure that we have all of our bases covered. And I talk a lot about this in the first part of the video about expansion and growth and potential. So for some of you guys, like this is, and I think for most Leo people, especially Leo risings, but Leo sun and moon as well, this is a time of spiritual and emotional growth. So you may not see the fruits of that labor quite yet. You may not see like why, like you may feel like you're suffering or going through all these like very intense experiences, but you don't see it yet because everything's in these like mystical, watery, emotional houses and not so much in the more concrete areas of your chart. So now is the time to start actually moving into the unknown. You've cultivated this inner courage, this inner strength, but now it's time to move. It's actually time to take action, to move towards something, to gain some spiritual independence. And when you do that, when you gain spiritual independence, it affects every aspect of your life. Freedom is the ability to choose. And Mars wants to choose. Mars is direct will. But when we're clogged up with all these subconscious beliefs from childhood and trauma, we have this illusion of free will, right? But where are we choosing from? I love and I hate talking about free will because it's very convoluted. What you're working towards right now is facing the unknown over the next 2 months, because then it's going to really ramp up for you. So what kind of changes have you seen in your 12th house since Mars has been here since September? What about when it went retrograde in December? Like, what has been going on for you guys? How have you guys been experiencing these 12th house themes? Solitude, long distance travel. Maybe you've been traveling a lot, overseas travel as well. Could be really, or just far distant places. Doesn't have to necessarily be overseas, but distant places from you. And maybe that's been helping you learn a lot about yourself, you know, or having these like spiritual moments that help you learn a lot about yourself. Let me know down in the comments below. I'll see you guys next time. My Virgo sun, moon, and rising. Mars is going direct in your 11th house. It's been in Cancer in your 11th since around September of last year. What is the 11th house? The 11th house is your social network, your friend groups, your benefactors, your organizations that you belong to. It's the internet. It is your hopes and wishes for the future as well. It's money earned from your career too. So what does this mean? I think for a lot of you guys, Mars in the 11th has been cutting out the people and the groups and the communities and the organizations that are not expanding with you, that are no longer aligned with you. The friends, the communities, the social networks, you've been on the search for something new. There could have been a lot of fighting or not just conflict within those friend groups as well. And you're entering this space in your life where it's very important for you to be aligned with the correct people. You've got a conglomerate of Pisces stuff, which we'll talk a lot about when we do the new moon in Pisces, in your 7th house of other people and one-on-one relationships. And then you've got Mars in your 11th. So this is a very social time. And that doesn't mean that you're out partying. It just means that it's about how you view friendships, how you view relationships, how you view pleasure, how you view groups. And Mars in the 11th also will have you striving for a different future, a different vision for your future. But for the past several months, since December 6th, Mars has been retrograde. So you haven't been able to really make moves yet. Maybe you made moves September to November, and then now things came back up or new things came about and you haven't really been able to move forward. Well, now it is saying it's time to move forward. Who needs to be cut out? Where do you need to choose your benefactors now? Where do you need to choose your new hopes and visions and dreams for the future? What are the organizations you want to be a part of? What are the friends that you want to have? The social networks. How do you get to have those people? What places do you have to be in order to have that? This is the last house that Mars will be in before it enters the unity and the oneness and the surrender of the 12th house on April 18th. I talk about this more in the beginning of the video, a little bit about the timeline. And we'll talk about that more as it gets closer with Mars moving into Leo. But the reason I say that with 11th is because you're on the decline into rest. So this is kind of like the last stop before you kind of surrender. And when Mars goes into Leo, and now you've got Mars in the 12th, Pisces in the 7th, all the stuff with your relationships, and the South Node in the 1st, and you're entering a very, very spiritually transformative time very soon. So this is a great way and time to redefine, what do you want your future to look like? You don't know where you're going exactly, but what are your visions? What are your dreams? Who can go with you? Who cannot? Who are the right people? Who are the wrong people? This is very big for you, and now you're getting the courage to actually choose the people, your benefactors in your life, the social networks and the communities that you want. Now it's your turn to choose. Let me know how this resonates for you guys, Virgos. Make sure to like and subscribe, comment down below. Let me know your experience. Have you guys had to let go of friends? Have you found new communities? Have you found new friends that feel more aligned to who you are now? Or is that something that you're still chasing because over the past several months, you've just been planning or thinking, and now you're ready to fully move into that? What kind of hopes and dreams for the future do you want for yourself? Let me know down below. I'll see you guys next time. Libra, Sun, Moon, and Rising. Mars is going direct in your 10th house of career, public status, legacy, achievements, goals, father figure, bosses, authority. So over the last couple of months, since Mars has been retrograde, it's been retrograde in this part of your chart since January 6th. It's been retrograde since December 6th, but it moved into the 10th house January 6th. It's going to be here till April 18th. I talk about that more in the beginning of the video and more in depth about this Mars going direct, so make sure you check that out if you haven't. But there have been confusion, or there has been a lot of not knowing what the next step is for your career, not knowing whether or not you want to move towards something or not regarding your goals, what kind of achievements you want to have, what kind of legacy and reputation you want to have. The workplace and your boss could have been limiting you in some way or bringing obstacles in your way. The 10th house is also the government. So, maybe the government changes have been making you feel unsure about your current work situation as well. Lots of ways this can be planning out, but now that Mars is going direct, it's really allowing you to make your decision, to assert your will, to expand in the way that you want to expand, and not let the limitations and the obstacles that have been placed around you stand in your way. Because you've been doing a lot of thinking about how you want to move forward, and it hasn't been easy to actually start taking those steps. But now, with Mars going direct, it's opening that up. You've got all this stuff happening in your 6th house of work too with Pisces, and we'll talk a lot about that with the new moon in Pisces. But this is happening at the same time where you have this conglomerate of Pisces stuff happening in your 6th, and then Mars finally going direct in your 10th. So the thing is that there's a lot of energy for you to find work that is aligned to you, environments of work that are aligned to you. For some of you guys, this could be that you're changing careers. For some of you guys, it's not that big of a change. It could be changing positions. You could be stepping down from a job, retiring, getting married, getting divorced. Like, there's some sort of change in your public status because of the 10th house implication. But I think for a lot of you guys, there is still something going on with work. And the North Node in the 6th wants to give you the right job and the right environments for you to thrive. So here, Mars direct is asking for courage. It's asking for you to step into your own sense of authority when it comes to your career, legacy, reputation matters, and not feel that limitation anymore, because you've been in this stuckness that, well, I don't even want to put quotations. It has been stuckness. In the stuckness that you felt over the last couple of months, you have been cultivating inner strength, inner courage, and now it's time for you to actually put it into work. What do you want? What achievements do you want to have in this life? What are your goals? There is something big changing here. A different direction could be coming for you guys with Mars here if you choose to do so. That's the thing with Mars, is the change comes about because of us. So what is happening in this part of your chart? How is this playing out? We're going to talk, like I said, more about the 6th house implications. But this, along with the new moon in your 6th just days later, just tells me that you guys are starting a brand new path when it comes to work, and how you approach work, how you approach responsibilities, your daily responsibilities. It could be also, like, of course, with the 6th house, illness and health and pets and all of these things, and service, and how you give service to the world, because the 10th house is also a house of service. It's a house of social service. So how you serve society on a larger scale, that's why it's your legacy. Whereas the 6th house is more of like a personal service that you give in your job. So Libras, what's going on in your guys' lives? What's been happening since Mars has been in Cancer Mars entered Cancer in September of last year until November. So 2 months, which was a little bit longer than Mars usually stays. And then we had it go back in January. So something's been brewing since around September of last year. And now you're starting to get ready to actually take action here. So this is really exciting. Let me know how this has been manifesting for you guys. What kind of changes do you see regarding your 10th house things, your career, legacy, reputation, public status? And I'll see you guys next time. Scorpio, sun, moon, and rising. We've got Mars going through your 9th house of Cancer. Been going through here on and off since September of last year. So a lot of changes around your philosophy in life, your belief system. Maybe some of you guys are wanting to pursue higher education, or you're changing your spiritual beliefs. You're changing your religious beliefs. The 9th house is also a lot about travel, and it's also about expanding our consciousness. So it's long distance travel. So maybe since Mars has been in your 9th house since September of last year, you've been wanting to explore more of the world, and you've been doing that. Or maybe you haven't, because there's been limitations and blockages, and now that's opening up for you. And you've spent the last, month and a half planning something, and now it's opening up for you. And the reason why this is really important is because on April 18th, Mars is going to move into your 10th house of career and legacy and reputation, and we'll talk more about that as it gets closer. But this is the setting up for how you can actually move toward the career that's right for you based on your belief systems, because your beliefs are changing. You've had to cut out the beliefs that no longer fit within your system. Maybe some of you guys were going to go to school and now you're not going to go to school. Or maybe there was like a philosophical framework that you were aligned with that you no longer feel aligned with. Maybe a religion, something like that. Maybe there's been a mentor that's been helping you. The 9th house can be spiritual mentors or advisors that has been helping you. Or, this is also a house of teaching. So maybe you've been wanting to teach something. And now with Mars going direct here, it kind of gives you the go ahead to start actually moving toward that. You've got the conglomerate of Pisces stuff in your 5th house too. So we'll talk about this more with the new moon in Pisces, but it's kind of hard not to talk about it here because you've got your 5th house and your 9th house lit up. So these are dharmic houses, right? And our dharma is what we are here to do in this world, not in the earthly sense, not in how we make money necessarily, because those are important as well, but different. This is what we bring to the universe through our work. So it doesn't matter what we do, but this is what we bring. And so for you guys, there is a lot of creativity that is coming up, something new that wants to be birthed with your 5th house things. We'll talk about that more, but right now it's like that and your 9th house. This purpose of like cutting out old systems, cutting out, there could be like legal things as well, legal proceedings during this time and over the next couple of months. But these things and your desire to expand your consciousness is because something new is wanting to be birthed, and you have to shed the old. And like I said in the beginning part of this video, growth is not always a comfortable process. It's not always pretty. It's not always Jupiter's growth, right? We're moving towards individuality, and that can be painful because that means that some things get left behind. And for you guys, like I said, it's mentors, it's belief systems, higher education, philosophy, the meaning that you had in life, what you felt like the purpose of life has changed. And now with Mars going direct, you get to act on those changed systems. You get to act towards litigation. You get to act towards that new spiritual belief or that higher education. Now you get the chance to choose rather than feel limited and blocked by the beliefs that were no longer serving you. You get to choose now. So Scorpios, let me know how this resonates. What belief systems, what kind of changes have you gone through that have led you here? And where are you going? Where are you expanding into? Mars is one of your co-rulers too, so I could see that specifically since it's been retrograde, but when Mars is in Cancer, it's in its fall too, so that's not the best place for it to be. I could see that this has been quite difficult for you guys, you know, and you guys have Pluto in the 4th, but when your ruler is retrograde, it kind of makes you have to really go inside, and it feels like no matter what you do, like you can't get your point across. You can't do what you're trying to do. It's like ineffective. And that can be really difficult for Scorpios, who are generally very effective people. You know, like you guys get to the heart of the matter and then you can enact change onto it. But recently it just hasn't felt that way, and that can be kind of crushing to you guys. So things are lightening up, things are getting better, you're going to be able to move forward. So I want to hear what you guys are up to, what you guys are doing. Make sure to like and subscribe. I'll see you guys next time. Sagittarius, Sun, Moon, and Rising. You guys have Mars going direct in your 8th house. Your 8th house of psychology, healing, addictions, intimacy, shared resources, transformation, death and rebirth, the give and take in relationships. You guys are going through, all the fire signs are going through a very deep transformative process. Mars has been on and off in your 8th house since September of last year, and it's been retrograde in this part of your chart since January 6th, but it's been retrograde since December 6th. It just started off in your 9th house. I talk a lot more about, you know, other stuff with Mars in Cancer in the first part of the video, so check that out if you haven't. But when Mars goes through our 8th house, this inner strength, man, you guys are gaining it in a sense of, this is interesting because Mars is about individuality, it's about autonomy. And so when it goes into the 8th house, which is intimacy and shared values, shared resources, it means that in relationships, you are actually standing up for yourself. And you are finding a balance that is more appropriate for you. And instead of, you know, maybe the give and take was off balance. And now you're entering into a new cycle, which I talked about in the first part, I just remembered. You're entering into a new cycle where there is more balance, where there is more harmony. Yeah, I just heard that you guys, if you haven't listened to the first part, you guys are the first sign I've felt this way about, is that you really need to listen to the first part. Because I felt like something about taking like really like quick actions that you're not really thinking about might come up for you guys, because you guys kind of like doing that sometimes, you know, like you're a mutable fire. And so you can be quite spontaneous at times. And something is telling me like you need to kind of make sure that you're doing the right thing before you jump into a new cycle. But regardless, since Mars has been retrograde in this part of your chart, you've been having to reflect upon your shared values, money, shared money, and those kind of situations, shared resources, the give and take within relationships, the balance or the imbalance there. And also, this is like Mars in 8th is such a great way to break addictive cycles, because Mars gives you that courage, and then retrograde, it makes you cultivate that inner courage. So whatever you guys feel like has a hold over you that has kept you stuck, Mars has made you have to face that internally. And now going direct, it's going to give you an opportunity to actually move forward with with breaking those bondages, with breaking these things that would hold you back. And it's allowing you to really bring that transformation into life. There is deep psychological healing that can happen here. Now, for you guys, you also have this Pisces conglomerate in your 4th house, which I'll talk about when I talk about the new moon Pisces. But this conglomerate in your 4th house is, once again, an emotional, watery house, like the 8th. There could be a lot of changes in your home right now. There could be a lot of changes in your family, in your internal emotional foundations as well. It just depends on, if you're sun, moon, or rising, but there is a new fated home situation for you. So if you are desiring to move, if you do feel like something isn't right about where you are, or something's not right with your family, there is something, because the North Node is here. There's something here that wants to come to you, but it's going to require transformation, deep emotional transformation. Things with your shared resources could get better with Mars going direct finally here. Things with your partner and intimacy could get better. And, it could be that this cycle of imbalance is just that you need to stand up for yourself more, or your partner needed to learn how to stand up for themselves more. And so then you don't have to necessarily end anything, because Mars does cut things out. So it can cut out intimate relationships. It can cut out shared resources. But it can also just grow within them. So it just depends on everybody's chart and everybody's situation. But Sagittarius, let me know how this resonates for you guys. Make sure to like and subscribe. I'll see you guys next time. For my Capricorn, sun, moon, and rising, Mars is going direct in your 7th house. When we have transits going through our 7th house, oftentimes it's a lot to do about other people, but it can also be reflected back to us through that mirroring, right? So Mars going direct, I talk about it more in the beginning of this video if you haven't checked that out yet. But Mars going through the 7th house on and off since September means that other people in your life where you have one-on-one relationships, so it could be your business partner, your romantic partner, your best friend, someone close to you, whatever, has been asserting their independence. This may have been uncomfortable for you. It may have made you feel unsure and confused as to why those people or that person may have been asserting themselves that way. Or there could have been an increased amount of conflict and strife and arguments and fighting. It's also giving you an opportunity to see how you interact with somebody who asserts their own boundaries, and giving you an opportunity to reflect that and mirror that back to you. Is how do I relate when it comes to conflict? How do I relate when it comes to somebody else saying what they want and it goes against what I want? And this has been a growth process, whether or not, because Mars does cut things out, and so it can be cutting out relationships in your life. And even though this may be, painful, generally it is, if we approach it with understanding, how did I contribute to this, and how did I respond, and am I okay with that? Do I like the way that I responded back, right? Because you can't control how somebody else acts, but you can control how you react. The reason why I'm saying this is because in the beginning part of the video, I talked about how this is like a beginning of a new cycle that is more balanced. And so maybe like your partner or your friend or your business partner, or whoever is that you have that one-on-one equal relationship to, maybe it was that they had to stand up for themselves, and that was what created equilibrium and balance in the relationship. Because oftentimes, if a relationship has a 6th house quality, one person is serving the other, the 6th house is unequal partnerships, well, that's not going to work in a relationship, right? Or there's something wrong with the shared values in the 8th house or something. And the 8th house is also give and take in relationships. So maybe there was a necessary rebalancing that was occurring during that time, and maybe you didn't know that. But now that Mars is going direct, maybe that's being made clear to you. Maybe now you're understanding why that person had to act the way that they had to act, that they had to stand up for themselves in order to reestablish a sense of balance and harmony. And like I said, it doesn't mean that with that understanding you stay with that person, or it doesn't mean that you break up with that person or you separate from that person, you stop being friends. It doesn't, that all of that is kind of like what I talked about in the beginning of the video. It's important, but that's not really the core of it, right? Because we can just jump from relationship to relationship and do the same patterns over and over again. But Mars being in this part of your chart for so long, on and off, and then going into your 8th, and then back into your 7th, and it's going to go back into your 8th, April 18th. We'll talk about that more as it gets closer. But right now, I want you to think about taking action in this, in a new way in your relationships. How do you want to show up? How do you want to maintain that equilibrium and that balance within your relationships as it has to do with Martian things? So assertiveness, independence, autonomy, personal will, individuality, action, conflict. When it comes to those things, Capricorns have been learning a lot about that through relationships. And now that Mars is moving direct, like I said, it's about now you get to make a choice. Because you may have felt like you couldn't really make a decision, and or your partner or your other friend or whoever is on the other side couldn't really make a clear decision, or there was a like misunderstanding of some sort. Because also at the same time, you guys have all this stuff happening in Pisces in your 3rd house, which could be fogging up communication for you guys. It could also be making your communication feel much more spiritual and, just bringing a sense of spirituality to your thoughts, to your inner world. So that's really beautiful, but it could also make things foggy, right? Especially because Mercury is in Pisces during the time that Mars goes direct. And Mercury in Pisces, like I talked about in the beginning of the video, is not super happy here. It's not super happy here. So it can make communication somewhat difficult. But with Mars at least going direct and it's trining Mercury, we can at least try to assert ourselves in that way. But we've had this 3rd house stuff that's happening, and there's like new faded environments for you. There's new faded skills that you have to learn. The 3rd house, when you guys have all this stuff going on there, it brings a lot of, I would say the 3rd and the 12th house are areas where it can be like all encompassing, because the 3rd house is your immediate environment. So you're embracing more spirituality in your everyday environment. You know, it could be that things in your life are changing, especially with relationships, but you're having more spiritual outlook to it because you know that the environment is not correct, or it is correct, and you want to make things work because this is the right environment. Regardless, you are entering a space when you have the North Node in the 3rd house, along with all these other things, that there are destined places for you to be. And so is this partner going with you? But more importantly, are the dynamics that you've learned going with you? Or are you going to still revert back to the old outdated patterns and take that with you into the next relationship? Like, that's really the big thing here. But I want to know what's been going on with you guys regarding other people and your, other one-on-one relationships since September of last year. What have you guys been learning? What's been going on? What are you taking action toward? What are you moving toward? Is it finding a partner based on all that work that you've done around those Martian themes internally? Or is it with a current partner? Has there been more strife and conflict? What have you learned from that recently? I'd love to hear from you guys down below, and I'll see you guys next time. Aquarius, Sun, Moon, and Rising, you guys have Mars going direct in your 6th house of work, illness, pets, daily responsibilities, service, duty, suffering, what you want to suffer for because of service. Mars has been going back and forth in this part of your chart since September. May have had you kind of rethinking your work situation, your health situation as well, if you have any illnesses that you're dealing with, how you want to be of service to other people. Maybe you've been thinking about being of service in other ways. Mars in the 6th house can also bring about litigation, although when it's retrograde, it can make it kind of feel like nothing's moving forward in litigation. And then once Mars goes direct, as it does February 23rd, things will start clearing up, pathways will start opening up. So for you guys, it could also be asserting yourself at work and and taking your work in a new direction. So for some of you guys, this could be finding a new job because Mars can cut things out. So it could cut out old jobs or old work environments. So maybe you're working in a new environment. It can cut out illnesses. It can cut out things that are unhealthy for you. So maybe you've been on a really big like health journey and finding people and things that are healthy for you. It does rule small animals, so it could also be getting animals or has something to do with your animals. But I think for a lot of you guys, this is really about how you make money and how you're of service. I say this because not only is Mars going direct here, but you also have a bunch of Pisces planets in your second house, which we're going to talk a lot about with the new moon in Pisces, and which is happening just a few days after Mars goes direct. So it's like giving you an opportunity to start a new 6 month to a year cycle with regarding how you make money. And so with Mars going direct, it's like all this time that you've been thinking about, like, how do I want to be of service? How do I want to act? How do I assert myself more with my people that I give service to? Or what is that power imbalance? Or is there strife or conflict within the workplace? And how do I go about that? Well, Mars going direct is going to give you an opportunity to actually start moving after ruminating on these things and these actions and these plans of how you want to change something. Because this is your individuality, right? Mars wants autonomy. So maybe you're wanting more autonomy in your work life. And Pisces being in the second house makes me feel like a lot of you guys want to be of service in a more spiritual way, whatever that means to you, in a way that's more, it doesn't have to be like religious or spiritual in the common sense, but whatever is spiritual to you. So whatever you feel like you are giving yourself up for the greater good of others, or making yourself an example for the greater good of others. And that's how you want to make money. With Pluto in the first, all this stuff happening in your second house, this is really about a massive change in direction for you guys that I do think for a lot of you guys is leaning more towards service to humanity. So Aquarius, let me know how this is coming up in your guys' lives. What actions are you wanting to take with your sixth house things now that Mars is finally going direct? I know this has been, everyone's been waiting for this. So what is going on? What are your plans? Are you moving forward with anything new? Let me know down below. I'll see you guys next time. Pisces, Sun, Moon, and Rising. You guys have Mars going direct in your fifth house of creativity, pleasure, romance, love, children, entertainment, self-expression. You know, it's so interesting because you guys have Mars going direct in the fifth of self-expression, and then you have a massive conglomerate of things happening in your first house, which is identity. It's you. It's who you are. Your attitude, your perspective on life, and the new sense of the sense of ego and identity that you have. So both of these houses have so much to do with your dharmic path, who you're meant to be in this world, and what identity you are holding on to and expressing that self. So this is so much about you guys learning to have the courage to express yourself. And we've got this new moon in Pisces at the end of the month, just days after Mars goes direct. So we're going to talk a lot about that. But there is so much emphasis on you guys, and there is so much reward to you being you right now in whatever way feels individual, whatever way makes you feel unique. Putting yourself out there, having the courage to put yourself out there and express yourself and all your creativity and your joy in whatever way it wants to express itself. That's really what I feel like this is about. And over the past several months, Mars it went into your sixth house, and then it went to your fifth, and it's been retrograde there since January 6th. It's going to move into your sixth again on April 18th. We'll talk about that more as we get closer to it. But for you guys, I feel like this is months of percolating creative ideas, waiting to birth something new, to start something new. And now Mars is giving you the go ahead. And I talk more about it in the first part of the video. So make sure you check that out if you haven't already. But just to get a little bit more detail about what's happening when Mars goes direct. But I just feel like for you guys, this is so much about having the courage to be you. And to birth whatever is trying to be birthed, whether that's a child or a creative project or a new sense of self coming through. Yeah, it's just the next year and a half, but specifically the next 6 months. Because whatever we do with the new moon in Pisces at the end of the month, little sneak peek here, is going to culminate with a lunar eclipse, which means fate, destiny, karma. So really putting yourselves out there right now and expecting that you'll be accepted for who you are, because your qualities are the exact qualities that we need in the world right now. And Mars is saying, yes, go with that creative idea. Go with that. Have pleasure in your life. Have fun. Have fun with this. Don't take it too seriously. I know Saturn's been in your sign, but Mars here is saying it's okay. It's okay to enjoy yourself, have fun, put yourself out there. It is safe. So let me know how this resonates for you guys. What kind of creative things are you thinking about? Or what kind of romantic ideas have you been having that you want to put out in the world? How are you expressing yourself? How do you want to express yourself? Are you changing your style? Is something changing about you physically too? I'd love to hear it down in the comments below. I'll see you guys next time.